third time, but certainly not the last time. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me back.
I am thrilled to have you here because, boy, oh boy, are we in crazy times. It seems like every day you wake up and you're like, what's going to be going on today? Like huge planetary shifts. We had to have you back to give us your zoomed out picture on what is going on in the bigger picture of the galaxy. Because one thing I've learned is, I've just learned so much about astrology from like Marilyn Dumont, from you, from Fatima, other experts I've had on the show about how it's crazy how things are cyclical and like the planets are like predicting what's going to happen if you understand. And it's like, in a way, it's very soothing to me because it's like, okay, so this isn't just like random craziness. Like this is almost predictable. And like, so there's got to be a point to it. So I wanted to have you back to talk to us, to educate us a little bit like Astrology 101. Letao, help us understand astrology, your take on it, and then please get into why it's important for us to understand astrology in our busy, everyday modern lives.
I think one of the important things for us to be aware of on a daily basis is that there is always a reflection between the sky and us. This is the foundation of actually astrology, which is called as above, so below. And I'm adding the second part of it, as within, so without. And so sometimes we say, why do people behave or they treat, me in a similar way? Again, this is sometimes what we see in other people is also about what we see in ourselves, and how other people see us is also how they see themselves. And so a lot of things are reflected back and forth. And once we come to this realization about how the world is operating, and we find the rules, the regularities through observing the movement of the stars, and we realize that, okay, so it's not about the sky deciding, our life. They don't decide. They don't, control us. But it's more like a synchronicity feeling, right? Whatever that is happening up there in the sky is a reflection of what is happening on the Earth. And when we study the movement of the planets and, planets transit, changing signs and things like that, and we have a realization about, what certain things means and how we can make better decisions to help us move forward collectively.
Well, I don't know if you've heard of Danielle Blackwood, but she's a really great mystical astrologer. I have a couple of her books, and she says astrology is the language of energy. I think that's just a really cool quote. And I've learned how it's related to the elements, which is, my jam, fire, water, air, earth. And I didn't really realize how they're connected. And why don't we talk about, okay, so what is it? There's 10 planets. We've got signs. We've got houses. Everybody thinks they know their sun sign, which is the stuff on the back of the newspaper. But can you just kind of explain to us just kind of like the big picture? Okay, astrology is basically this: 10 planets. When you're born, the planets are a certain alignment. And the one that's in your sun is your major. I don't know. Please take it away.
So the astrology is about a very Earth-centric perspective. And so what we're doing is we're observing the positions of the planet from our perspective on the Earth. And we're looking at where all these stars and planets are and what their relationships with each other. And so, for example, let's say today, right? January for you, it's the 28th, right? And for me, it's the 29th of January, 2025. And let's say someone is born now, and, as a baby, they would look up into the sky and imagine if we take a snapshot of the sky at that moment, and we will be able to draw where the planets are around us, right? Let's say we draw this whole thing as a map, the celestial sphere. And we'll be able to study which constellation sign that each planet is with. And we'll also be able to see the relationship between these planets. Are they, for example, opposing each other? Are they squaring each other, meaning they're 90 degrees away from each other? Are they in conjunction, right? Are they in the same position? And so all of these things are the subjects that we study in astrology. And because different planets represent different things in our lives, and we'll also be able to identify this aspect, this angle, what it will affect, right, specifically in your life. For example, the moon represents our early childhood family. The moon rules our mother. It rules our security and what emotionally we are attached to, what we need in terms of our security. And so, for example, through studying the moon, we understand how this person's feeling is related to, for example, intimate connections, their sense of security, even, for example, their early days relationship with their families, their mother, sometimes father too, but more often than not is the mother.
So we have 12 astrological signs. We're talking about 10 planets, which include the two luminaries, the sun and the moon.
Correct. And, yeah.
Okay. And then, but we have, okay, it's the snapshot of when you're born. It's like a fingerprint. No two astrological signs are the same because it's, how the planets are aligned. You have a primary planet. That's what your sun sign. And then you have the...
Yeah, so, all planets have their signs, right?
Yeah.
Maybe when you were born, the sun is in Aries and the moon might be a different position. So the moon would be in, for example, in Gemini, and that would be in a different place in the sky. And your rising sign or ascendant sign might be in Virgo, and that's another different location. And so all the different entities in the sky, they might be scattered across, all the different signs. Or for some people, maybe a lot of the planets are located in the same sign, depending on the day, the year, the month, and the day you were born. And so, which means that, for example, you do have, 10 different entities, or sometimes if you include the asteroid planets, right? There are more than 10. There are, 12, 13, 14 different things you want to look at. But maybe half of them are squeezed in one constellation sign. It's possible. And the other, 6 or the other 5 are scattered somewhere else. Yeah.
So I was in a situation where I don't know exactly what time I was born. How important is the exact time? Like I supposedly have the day.
It's very important, because the time would define where your rising sign is, where your and specifically, I would say, in Western astrology, is more important than Eastern metaphysical studies, because rising sign basically the rising the ascendant will change 1 degree every 4 minutes. So, even if someone says I was born between probably 8 p.m. and, 10 p.m., that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of difference, right? Within that 2 hours.
Yikes. So
the time is always important. And usually when a client comes to me and say, my mother doesn't remember, and she doesn't have my birth certificate. And I would say, well, if it's possible, you can actually find the hospital that you were born in and you call them, because a hospital usually have the record. They will be able to check for you if it's important to you, right? You can always contact the hospital that you were born in. Yeah. And they usually have the exact time for you.
Oh, that's interesting to know. Okay. So it's about... And then what about the houses? What is the stuff about houses? Like what's in what house?
So house is very time sensitive, right? So basically when we say ascendant, basically that means it's your first house. Your first house is your ascendant. And depending where your ascendant is, then the first house will start in a different degree. And then, of course, if the first house is different, then the second house will be different, and the third house will be different, because they follow the first house. And so, its house system is very time sensitive. Yeah.
Gotcha. So when you do a reading, because you did a reading for me months ago, you have to take the person's birthday and obviously time if you can. But then how do you correlate it with that date? Like, okay, you were born whenever, whatever, 40, 50, 60, 20 years ago, whatever it is. But then now we're bringing it to apply today. Like, how do you do that?
So that's a different thing. Yeah. So when we study your astrological chart, we call that a natal chart, meaning that literally the snapshot that we did for the day that you were born. And that's usually talking about your life tendencies.
Yeah.
So what you tend to feel and what you tend to struggle with and what you tend to be blessed with throughout your lifetime, because that's what you were born with.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about, for example, this year, what's specifically important to you and what you can do in this year or what happened last year and what you should be focusing on next year. And we're talking about the transit chart.
The transit. So the transit's the current time.
Yeah. And so when we look at the transit, we're actually putting two charts together. Where on the left side, we have your natal chart. And on the right side, we have the current planet's position. And we put those two things together.
Cool.
Yeah. And then we're looking at how the current planets are affecting your natal chart. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that would be two charts. That was more advanced because you are looking at two things together.
For sure. My goodness. So how do you deal with someone, or have you ever had a client who, like, let's say their moon's in Cancer or something, and they're like, but I don't want to be that way, and because I know we have all the signs in us. So that means, like with archetypes, like with my work with archetypes and women, it's like, oh no, you can tap into any goddess energy you want, making a conscious choice, attention and intention, right? But you might have an inclination towards certain ones, but they're all within you. So are planets the same way? Like, let's say someone wants to be more like Leo energy or more like Venus, right? Like, I mean, what is your advice on that about maybe being a little bit different than your planets have decided for you when you were born?
Right. So I would say the signs is a little bit like the roles that the planets are playing in our lives. So for example, again, when we talk about the moon is our inner emotion, right?
Yeah.
And if your moon in Cancer, then basically this actress, the moon, is playing the role of a mother. So when your moon is in Cancer, naturally you're nurturing. Naturally, you want to be a mother of something. Naturally, you will also want to feel you are being nurtured by someone you care about. And it's not easy to change that because what you need is what you need.
Right. Yeah.
That's just what it is, right? I can always say, well, but you can not need it, but that's not possible. You just naturally need it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think people would say, oh, I don't want to be in this sign. Usually when they say, I don't like this sign, it's because they don't know much about this sign.
Okay.
And the typical thing that I've heard is that people say, oh, I don't like being a Scorpio.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've heard people say. And I would ask them why. And they would say, oh, because, it's kind of like, creepy and kind of like, right? It's sexual and vengeful, and things like that. And I said, well, that just means that you don't really understand what Scorpio truly represents, because Scorpio actually has 3 layers of energy. If you reach the highest level of a Scorpio, then you're Buddha. I mean, or you are.
Kidding.
Yeah, you are in nirvana, because the highest level of a Scorpio is not really a scorpion. The highest level of Scorpio is a phoenix. And so,
cool.
So when we look at Scorpio in a very negative way, we're talking about actually the lowest level of the Scorpio energy, which is actually a scorpion. It's spiteful.
My God, I never heard that.
It's tit for tat, right? Mm-hmm. It's dark. It's possessive. Things like that. And the middle layer of Scorpio, for example, is a snake. And snake is better because snake's representing, but we have wisdom now. In the Old Testament, the snake was the one whispering the secret of the forbidden tree. to Eve. And why did she do that? Because he has the knowledge. He knows stuff. And so the snake energy is about shedding the old skin and learning from our past experience and becoming wiser. And if you go further up a level, that's the Phoenix. And then we go to the transformational energy of Scorpio.
That is super cool. I never heard Scorpio 3 energies.
Yeah. So this is kind of like, I think it really depends on how you see the 12 different signs. I mean, no sign is better than any other sign.
Right.
It depends on how you use them.
Yeah.
Even though in astrology, there are, we call them, the trinity or the rulership, right? And so there are certain planets feeling happier in certain signs compared to other signs, but it's not really 100%. And also depending on, especially based on my experience, I feel our happiness is not really related to what sign the planet is in, but it's more about the aspect the planet is forming.
The aspect,
so for example,
okay.
Yeah, meaning the angle, okay, that a planet is forming with other planets.
Oh.
Yeah, so for example, traditional astrology believe that the moon should be the happiest in Cancer because the moon is a ruler of Cancer.
Right.
Because Cancer is the mother, right? And the moon is security. So naturally, when you put these two things together, moon wants to be in Cancer because it's easy for the mother to express its feelings and its love in the secure environment. Yep. And it's also easier for us to feel secure and nurtured when we're with a mother. And that's just typically what we think that should be, right? So we usually say moon is happiest in Cancer and then it's miserable in Capricorn because Capricorn is the opposite sign of Cancer. Capricorn is not about nurturing, but it's about discipline. And so when you can imagine, how can a child feels nurtured and loved when it's in a very disciplined environment? Probably it's harder for a moon to express its nurturing energy, the motherly energy in the disciplinarian environment, right? But what I notice is that even the moon is in Cancer, if you're having some very difficult aspect from other planets, then it's also difficult for the moon to express its motherly energy in Cancer. But at the same time, when the moon is in Capricorn, if it forms very good aspects with Jupiter or with Venus, right, or with other planets, it's actually not that bad. The individual is very happy to have their moon in Capricorn because they feel a sense of contentment and
security,
fulfillment.
maybe.
Security when they are disciplined in their own life and they enjoy that.
Yeah, boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, so it really depends. I think the angles between, or in astrology, we call that aspect, right? Meaning the angles, right? The aspects between planets, to me, are way more important in a counseling session than what sign the planet is in. Yeah.
So how do you know what angles there? I never heard anyone talk about angles.
So that, you have to cast a chart and you have to draw lines between the planets. And you see, okay, these two planets are forming at 180 degrees aspect. And those two planets are forming 90 degrees angles. And these two are forming 120 degrees angles. And so then you will know the aspect. Yeah, that's aspect basically talking about what degrees they're away from each other.
Okay, degrees. All right, so we're coming into the age of Aquarius. Aquarius, everyone's talking about. And it's funny because I'm an Aquarius, but I think I've told you this before. I've always been very perplexed by that. I swear they got my birthday wrong because I've never really identified too much with Aquarius other than being kind of innovative and seeing a big picture. But an Aquarius throws people off, Letao, because as you know, Aquarius is an air sign. It's not a water sign. People think of the water bearer, right? But Aquarius is an air sign, which means it's more mental. Go figure. So what would you like to tell us about Aquarius, considering we're in this age of Aquarius, or the dawning at least?
The so-called age of Aquarius has a lot to do with the Pluto's transit in Aquarius for the next 20 years.
Okay.
And so Pluto is a very intense planet, and Pluto stays in each zodiac sign for about 20 years. And so for past the 20 years, Pluto has been in Capricorn, or 15 years, depending on sometimes 15 to 20, let's say, that gap. Yeah. And for the next 15 to 20 years, Pluto will be in Aquarius. And so Aquarius, when we talk about the age of Aquarius, we're not really talking about our individuals. We're talking about humanity as a collective. What's the energy that Pluto is bringing? Aquarius, like what you said, is to deal with innovation technology. So one thing that we will see over the next 20 years is this Pluto's influence in our technology. And what is Pluto, right? Pluto is secrecy. Pluto is manipulation. Pluto is darkness, right? And also transformation, right? So when we combine those concepts into technology, what does that mean? It means AI. Well, we're dealing with AI, but AI is scary. It's like Pluto is secretive. Nobody knows how it actually works, and nobody knows how this will impact our humanity. Will it be able to control us? Do we lose control of AI? Now, AI becomes human. We become, their tools, right? Things like that. And so, or something that you created through AI, but that looks real. Is that real? Is that not real? So Pluto also brings out a lot of what do you call that? Paranoia and suspicion. And so the so-called age of Aquarius is about where we find this sense of paranoia and darkness and things that we struggle with in. And Aquarius says, well, it's going to be in technology. It's going to be in innovation. And Aquarius also rules, for example, humanitarianism, charity work, so this could also be about a major transformation in that field. And so we might be dealing with humanitarianism in a completely different way over the next 20 years. How we see, the future, how we see human being as a collective. And so it's not really about our individual, what Pluto will do. Of course, if you are in a sun sign Aquarius, at some point, Pluto is going to come to a conjunction to your sun sign, because your sun sign is when you were born, the sun was in the location of Aquarius. So at some point, Pluto is going to come to a conjunction, among in between the 30 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto is going to come to your sun sign at some point, and that will usually symbolize sort of like so we demolish the so-called the old sun, meaning that your own identity. And then you rebuild that. You rebuild your identity. And you realize that that's not who I am at all. See, for the past 20 years or 30 years, I thought I was this, but I'm not this at all. And I'm going to transform that. Like, for example, one client of mine, he has been a flight attendant with a very famous airline in Hong Kong for the past 25 years. He's a veteran flight attendant. He serves, only business class and first class customers. And we all see him as a flight attendant. When we talk about him, we talk about, the flight attendant guy, right? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly, when the Pluto transit in his sun sign, which takes about 3 to 4 years' time, and COVID happened, and he lost his job security because airlines couldn't fly.
Yeah.
And he was given a choice. Either you leave the airline, we'll pay you a lump sum. Here is some money for you. You can resign now, or you can just stay with us, but we're going to cut your salary in half because we just can't pay you anymore. So you decide what you want to do. And so has already been a long time when he felt there was something unfulfilling to him.
Oh, okay.
He felt he wanted to do something more, but because he has been a flight attendant for so long and the job is very secure, there's nothing to really force him out. So he has been delaying it, postponing it, and just feeling, what, I'm going to wait, it's okay, yeah. Because he has always been wanting to do something else. And he was quite clear what he wanted to do, but he didn't have the guts to do it.
Yeah.
And when Pluto transiting his sun sign, that actually happened. And so we had probably 2 consultations, and he resigned from the airline. And now he's doing great in his new career. So he had this complete transformation of his identity. He's no longer a flight attendant because that's what he was known for. And now he is, and now he's actually a tour guide now, but he moved back to Japan, and he is, he's flourishing. Every day he's, traveling around, the country taking, because now, everyone goes to Japan. because it's cheap. It's fascinating. People love the food and culture there. And he speaks French. So every day he's dealing with, group French tourists and, talking to them about, the famous tourist sites in Japan, Japanese history and things like that. And he loves it so much. He said, I feel so alive and I love
That's
this
amazing.
new me. Yeah. So back to astrology. That's what Pluto does. It's intense. When the company presenting him the choices, it was devastating. It's almost like I'm being abandoned. Like you're abandoning me after 25 years.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Up against a wall. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the Pluto is a little bit like that. Pluto is a little bit like a nuclear weapon. It destroys everything and then it forces you to rebuild. But it's just something that is necessary. Yeah.
Holy mackerel. So it's like Kali energy.
Yeah.
So did you just say, though, that with the Aquarius, this is happening soon? I missed
over the next 20 years. Yeah.
In the next 20 years, Pluto's coming into Aquarius and it's going to blow everything up.
Yeah. Especially if you have sun sign or moon sign in Aquarius, in Scorpio, in Taurus, and also in Leo. So those 4 signs, if your sun or moon are in one of those 4 signs, Pluto will have some effect on you.
Okay, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and what was the other one?
Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus.
Taurus. Those are the signs that Pluto is going to be affecting.
Yeah, so if you have sun or moon in those 2 signs, you will feel the Pluto's energy most, strongest.
Within the next 15 years.
15 to 20 years, I would say, depending on where your sun or moon is. If there's early degrees of those 4 signs, you will experience it earlier. If at the later degrees of those 4 signs, you experience it later.
Okay, so what is it about those 4 signs?
Oh, because they are Aquarius, because Pluto is in Aquarius, and the other 3 signs because they are forming a very critical angle with Aquarius. So, for example, Leo is opposing Aquarius in the sky. Okay. So when Pluto is transiting Aquarius, is opposing Leo, and so it will also make an effect on Leo, and it's squaring Scorpio and squaring squaring Taurus and squaring Scorpio. So it will also make a huge effect on those 2 signs. Opposition and square are the 2 most important angles. So anything comes to conjunction, opposition, or square, they will affect you. Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about those 4 signs that basically the person's identity is going to be kind of blown up. Like you might have a huge pivot.
No, so sun sign would be more like an identity. Moon sign would be more about your emotional attachment.
Okay, so sun would be identity, moon would be emotional. Oh boy. Oh wow.
So for example, if your moon is in Aquarius instead of your sun, then a Pluto transit the moon could bring a lot of intense emotions into our lives. This could be about you experiencing some very intense relationship with someone. And thus that would help you to demolish how you think you should feel or how your emotion should work for you. And then you reach the so-called a higher level of understanding about your inner feelings.
Well, I've got the Aquarius is in my sun, so I get identity. And I shifted identity quite a lot when, the whole COVID pandemic hit, and I pivoted from my brick and mortar club to the podcast and now my online membership and all that. So, but I'm still in the same area. But
also Scorpio has a lot, especially for a woman's chart. Yeah, the sun also rules important men in your life, and so so Pluto's transit to your sun could also be talking about some kind of release or letting go of a male figure in your life.
Well, I already lost my dad, so not him.
Yeah, so for some women, it's a dad. For some women, it's a husband. For some women, this could be about a very important man that they either admire or they love, right? Maybe not a father, not a husband, but a very, very important male figure in their life that they see as the son of their life. So almost like you are you are the sun, right? You are the idol, right? You are my idol, right? I look up to you. But when Pluto transit that area, it's about, okay, I'm seeing you in a different way now.
Yeah. So this is like a bad thing, though. Like, I don't see you like right? Like, I don't see you that way anymore.
No, because eventually the truth has to come out.
Oh
so,
my
for
God.
example, let's say if you, for example,
Oh.
So, for example, if you have been involved let's say, like, for example, in Hong Kong, we have some cult groups.
Yeah.
And a lot of women would follow those cult groups and they think that they find their destiny. But eventually, those cult leaders, they will reveal their true identity.
Yeah.
And then as a follower, you realize that, oh, I've been scammed.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. This isn't good. It's like you're being disillusioned.
Oh, because you have always been scammed.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Like yes, it's good because you're getting a reality check. But
correct,
ouch.
yeah. So the Pluto is helping you to see the truth, rather than continuously to be scammed.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So that's a little bit like a savior. But like what I said, also coming back to the example that I gave regarding this flight attendant friend. So Pluto's transit was a good thing for him. I mean, like what I said, when you realize something, when the company was presenting the choice in front of him, it was a bad thing, but it's from the perspective at that time.
Yeah.
But if you ask him now, do you actually prefer to still be a flight attendant now? The answer is absolutely no.
Yeah. He's like, best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Pluto transit could be bad for people who have escapism.
Escapism?
Yeah. Okay. Pluto's transit is bad news for people who have escapism, who want to run away from reality.
Or avoidance. Who
want to live in their bubble and dreams. Yeah. And that could be very bad for them because they are no longer. That is
not me.
Yeah. But if you don't want to live in the bubble, then Pluto transit is a good thing. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. No, I'm all for it. I've always said, I want to know the truth no matter how much it hurts.
Yeah.
Wow, this is fascinating. All right, so what are your thoughts on, we're looking at 2025, it's a 9-year. What do you got to share with us? I'm hearing all this crazy chatter. I guess the week of the 20th, January 20th, was some big planetary, hasn't happened in like our whole lifetime lineup. I mean, talk to us. What's going on?
This year has a lot of major changes, actually. Most planets are switching to a new sign, which is not very common. We didn't have that in 2024. And 2025, Saturn moving to a new sign, Jupiter moving to a new sign, Neptune and Uranus are also moving to a new sign. And we're having our numerological vibration of number 9, which is about coming to an end, coming to a completion of the current cycle. And even in the Eastern metaphysical studies, right, this year is a year of the snake. And the snake is talking about ending and completion and leading to new things. Because, the snake is a little bit like a cycle, right? It's like a circle.
Yeah. The Ouroboros.
The Ouroboros
snake
cycle.
Eating its tail. Yep.
Correct. Yeah. And also snake is about shedding the old skin. They need to shed the old skin in order to move forward and having a new life. So from both the Western and Eastern perspective, I mean, this year is really the year when we need to kind of like do a little bit like a summarization of the past either 9 years or maybe even 18 years or maybe even 27 years, right? And we're looking at what do I need to sum up and what do I need to shed and what do I need to rebuild into the future. And when we say rebuild into the future, we're not just talking about rebuild them within 2025. We're talking about rebuild from 2025 forward into the future. So I think especially for certain zodiac signs, a lot of the so-called shedding the old skin would be their theme. In terms of the Western zodiac signs, for example, I would say definitely Pisces, because we're still having Saturn in Pisces. Pisces is one of those signs that need to shed the old skin. Virgo is something that they're completing and they need to move on to the next stage. Sagittarius and Gemini, these 4 signs.
Those four signs are what?
They need to shed the old skins. They need to.
Particularly those four.
Particularly, they will feel this this universal number of number 9 strong. Yeah.
So I've been hearing some astrologers lately here in the beginning of 2025, just, giving different dates, like significant dates that this, watch out for energy here. And then coming around, something going on in March that's supposed to be happening. And then someone was mentioning something in July, some kind of huge energetic shift, and make sure you get some extra food and canned, this kind of stuff. Like, do you go into that at all, or?
So what they're basically talking about is that in those months, the planet will actually change signs.
Yeah.
And that's when the shift is happening, things related to that planet. So for example, Jupiter will change signs in June the 8th or June the 9th from Gemini into Cancer. So that's you leave one room, you go into the other room, and that's the shift, when the shift is actually happening. Yeah, and I think Uranus is changing signs in July from Taurus into Gemini. And Uranus changing sign only happens once every 7 years. And so when the planet actually are shifting from one sign to another, that's the energetic feeling we will have. Yeah. And
okay, so this is a big thing. The when the planets change signs.
Oh yeah.
This is okay, and it's something that isn't like a set formula, is what I'm understanding. They're all different and random, and sometimes it's 20 years before a planet changes signs, like this thing with Pluto, which is why it's such a big deal, right? It's stuck in the sign for 20 years, and all of a sudden, boom, it's like the doors open and the kids run out. It's just like, here we go. Like, the whole energy shifts, and it seems like it's out of nowhere for people, but it's because this planet is now completely like 360'd or something.
Yeah, especially I would say planets that are from Jupiter, right, toward including all the planets further away, because we call them the generational planets. Their movement very slow, so when they change signs, it's a big deal. Yeah. See, nobody talks about the shifting signs of the moon, because the moon changes signs once every 2 days.
Yeah.
So it's not significant. But if a planet takes several years to move from one side to another, then that's a big deal. Yeah, that's talking about the energetic shift. And also we have to look at what that planet is. For example, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, growth, and opportunity. So when this planet shifts signs, and we know that where the opportunities come from. And when Saturn changes signs, Saturn is about karma, discipline, and lessons. And so when Saturn changes sign, we also know what kind of lessons that we're learning from one sign to another, one energy to a different energy. Yeah.
Okay, so what planets maybe you've already said this, but what planets are changing signs this year that are significant for us in 25?
Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune.
All right. Could you walk us through what each of those are and when that is? Jupiter, Saturn.
Jupiter, I think, is June. Uranus, I think, is July. So Saturn will enter Aries from Pisces in late May, but it will also retrograde back to Pisces around September. So Saturn is so that's what's going to happen. Neptune is the same. Neptune will enter Aries in the months of early April or late March, early April.
Oh, that's the one I heard about the other day.
But it will shift back to Pisces around September, October time. Yeah.
So what does that mean though? Like what is that symbolic of Neptune in April moving?
Well, it means there's going to be a shift from Pisces to Aries energy from the end of an astrological cycle to the new astrological cycle. And you also have to study what Neptune represents in astrology. You will know what this shift is about. So, for example, Neptune is representing dreams, illusions, spirituality, sometimes addiction, magic, all these kind of things. And so you will see once Neptune actually has spent the past, 10 years, 12 years actually in Pisces. And so Neptune actually was happy in Pisces because Neptune was the modern ruler of Pisces. And when Neptune has been in Pisces for the past, 10 to 12 years, it was a good position for Neptune to be. It's easier for Neptune to show its spiritual side because Pisces is spiritual as well. But when Neptune moves into Aries, Aries is no longer about spirituality. Aries is about war. It's about, aggression. It's about, in a good way, it's about courage. So again, in astrology, nothing is all good or all bad. Any planet, you can talk about the good things about them, the bad things, and including zodiac sign. See, Aries, you can say, is independent, it's courageous, it's leadership. But in the bad way, Aries is impulsive, it's aggressive. And, it hits you, on the face, right? And so Aries energy with Neptune, this could be about how do we deal with, for example, our addiction, our let's say our sense of mysticism and our spirituality, because Aries energy can be actually quite explosive in that way. And sometimes this could also be saying that we never know what certain government would use in the wartime. For example, Neptune is related to sleep or related to, let's say, euthanasia. Right? Euthanasia is related to Neptune, right? So when euthanasia comes to, for example, Aries, do we think that sometimes people might just travel to a country to receive euthanasia impulsively?
Wow.
We never know, right? So when we study, especially these kind of planets, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, they're not really talking about our individual life. It's not about what's going to happen in your life, but it's talking about collective as human being. What's the trend there? What kind of phenomenon we could see? And what kind of issues we might be dealing with, just like what I said earlier about Pluto into Aquarius. Suspicion, right? Paranoia. In technology. It does not mean that you will start feeling suspicious about your computer from today, but it means for the next 20 years, what humanity tend to deal with. Maybe there's AI related, paranoia. Maybe there's people manipulating the AI system to fake something, things like that.
Yeah, like the holograms.
Yeah.
And the drones.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Okay, all right. Yeah. So, and then Jupiter. You said Jupiter is another one.
Jupiter is an expansion, growth, and opportunity. So from Gemini into Cancer, this is about unlock opportunity more in the family time.
What month is that though? When is that?
So Jupiter will move into Cancer in June.
June. Oh, that's June. Okay.
Yeah,
so
and it will
family.
and it will stay in Cancer for a year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Saturn in May. What does Saturn represent?
Saturn represents karma, discipline, lessons, especially the harsh life lessons we have to learn.
Oh boy!
In order for us to mature. So if Jupiter, so I always use this analogy. If Jupiter is someone just giving you a whole bunch of cash and say spend as much as you can, it's going to be good for you. Take the cash. And Saturn will be like, no, you cannot spend all of them. Let's make a plan. You can only spend $1 each day so that you will have the $100 for the next 100 years. So Saturn is that disciplinarian father that set rules for you, saying what you're allowed and what you're not allowed. And if you cross your lines, then you'll be punished. That's what Saturn is about.
For your own good. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so, and that's why people don't like Saturn, because as human beings, we don't like rules in general.
Yeah.
Right? We don't like limits. If I can have, $1 million, I'll have $1 million. If I can have 2 million, I'll have 2 million, right? Human beings are never, we're always insatiable. But Saturn will say, stop. No.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Saturn moving to Aries, this could be about the discipline or the rules. Or the lesson we learn through Aries. And Aries is about, again, confidence, leadership, courage. Or Aries could be about our aggression, our war, right? Whoa. So this could be about, the harsh lessons we learn from, for example, wars happening in the life, in the world. Yeah.
April, May, June, like bam, bam, bam. Those three right there. All right. And then Uranus?
Uranus will enter Gemini. In July, I think.
Wow. So April, May, June, July. Those 4 in a row.
Yeah. And Uranus will stay in Gemini for 7 years, so.
Gemini,
and Gemini is communication. communication, talking, listening. And Uranus is related to revolution, and also technology as well. So this is going to be technology breakthroughs in our telecommunications in the human history.
In July, yeah, and that was okay. And then Uranus is also like sudden change, right? Like out of the blue, something out of nowhere and all that.
Correct.
Right?
So that's about the breakthrough, right? Yeah, suddenly things will change. Yeah, related to like what I said, communication, telecommunication. Gemini also rules siblings. So as a humanity as a whole, we're talking about neighboring countries. The sudden changes between neighboring countries. We're already seeing, things between US and Canada, actually. From our perspective, we always think that, those two countries are really good buddies, right? Good friends. And now Trump became the president now, where he's taxing Canada now, So to us,
Trudeau resigned.
You resigned. To us, it's a surprise to be like, really? I thought, because for us, right, we think they're the same.
Yeah. Well,
so, but it's not, right?
We had thought that until COVID, and then all of a sudden, all the stuff started coming out. That's not really. They don't have a constitution like we do, although ours was kind of ignored for a while. But wow, well, this is some heavy stuff. We got 4 months right in a row.
Yeah.
What else are you seeing for this year? Anything else that we should be aware of that it really stands out?
The year of the snake has a lot to do with our introspection. So it's very different from the previous dragon year. Dragon was the yang energy, and the snake is the yin energy.
All right.
Yeah. So if I would just use an analogy, I think this will be very self-explanatory. The ancient days, Chinese people used to believe that the dragon was the reincarnation. Our empress was a reincarnation of dragons. So let's say last year was the dragon year, and the emperor is wielding its sword and leading his army to the battlefield, and is just ready to raise his enemy to the ground. And the snake year is the imperial advisor. And so that this old man would be whispering at the dragon's ear and saying, "Your Majesty, maybe there's a better way for us to do this rather than just killing everyone." And so the snake year, it's about listening. It's about put your sword down and reflect on, have I been doing this thing the right way? When I'm just trying to raise everything to the ground. And so snake energy is about introspection, reflection, meditation, yoga, the yin. Also, the snake year needs a lot of support. Specifically, this year, because when we talk about the snake year, there's also an element that is attached to the snake. And 2024 is the yin wood snake, which is different from the 12 years ago when the snake came. The yin wood, it's a plant wood, right? But the yin wood is not a tree. The yang wood is a tree. The yin wood is like a vine. So when you think of a vine, how does it survive? It needs something to climb onto. You can't grow grapes just as what it is. You need to have a pole there or something to support the vine so that the vine can grow and can go up. And so the yin wood snake is also about finding the right support, finding the right community, finding the right partnership, because the vine cannot grow on its own. It needs something to help it to thrive. And so this year has a lot to deal with partnership as well, and finding the right person to be with and to exchange knowledge and to find further growth through each other rather than I do everything on my own.
Wow, that's like fascinating. All right, and how about the fact that it's numerologically a 9?
9 is about ending completion, right? Because this is the final year of the numerological cycle, right? So again, same as a snake year, it's about shedding old skins. It's about what do you need to, what are you ready to release? And I think this is a great year for, the 4 signs that I mentioned earlier. Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius, because they need to, the Saturn transit will need them to shed old skins. And the personal year of 9 and plus the year of the snake, they're all in line with those 4 signs. So I'll say if you have your sun, moon in one of those 4 signs, you're basically just being called to do the same thing again and again and again.
Okay, so the signs of Pisces, Virgo, Sag, and the other one. But what about the other 4? Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus. What?
Oh, this depends on, for example, how what degree your planet is, because each constellation sign covers 30 degrees of the sky, and it takes 20 years for Pluto to go through those 30 degrees. So if you were born at the very early degrees of those 4 signs, the Pluto's energy will come to you earlier. And then that would be also about releasing transformation. But if your planet is at the later degrees, then not yet. Not yet for you. Yeah.
So you really you do need to know your time, your birthday time.
Not really, because your sun and the moon, moon sign, yes, probably, yeah, it's better that you have the accurate time because the moon moves very fast. But the sun doesn't move much during that day. So if you know what day you were born, then we already know the degree of your sun. Because it doesn't matter what time you were born, the sun will still be at that degree. The sun only moves 1 degree per day. So it doesn't matter what time you were born, the sun will be there. But the moon changes faster.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the moon being yin is the feminine, which is change. Yeah.
So I think for these kind of details, right, it's very difficult to explain this in a very detailed way for laymen, because what I'm talking about, all these things, it's pretty much like 6 months course for people who want to study astrology, right? So if our audience is not really understanding what this is, please feel it's okay that you don't understand. You need to understand how this works. At least take 6 months. When you go through an astrological course in the astrological school, then you will know what I mean by the early degrees, the later degrees, where the planets are. But just know that if you are born around the very early days of that zodiac sign, that means you're at the early degrees, and the Pluto will affect you sooner. But if you're born at the end of the zodiac sign, for example, Aquarius until pretty much February the 19th. So if your birthday is, let's say, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19th of February, then your sun sign is at a later degree of Aquarius. Then Pluto will not come to your sun sign, your sun, until the next, for another 10 years probably. So don't worry about it.
And of course, I'm 10, February 10. So
not yet. Not yet.
So I'm considered at the end.
You are considered a middle. Yeah, middle towards the end, yeah.
So it won't be in the next 15 years.
No, it won't. It's within the next 15 years, the later part of the next 15 years.
So not in the next few years. It'll be like 10 years from now.
So probably I would say you don't need to worry about it for the next 5 years, at least. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. All right. So obviously, yes, this is a lifetime study, which is what you had. And as we get toward the end here, so I guess just final thoughts on the year ahead, just to wrap this all up for people, that the layman's terms of, okay, wow, there's a lot of great information. I'm sure people are going to listen to this many times. I know I am, to try to pick up on all of it. But bottom line stuff on this year, Letao?
I would recommend everyone to have some spiritual practice in the year of snake, because this year could be very good, like what I said, for introspection and meditation. And the advice for each one would have to really be based on their chart and their signs and things like that. But as a collective, I would really say that building your own sense of spirituality this year could be very, very rewarding in the Yinwood snake year, based on Chinese astrology. And so this year, if you haven't had any very regular spiritual practice that you do, maybe we can all start in this year, because we will see more reward coming from building these habits in the year of 2025.
So this year in particular, it's important to develop a spiritual practice, because why?
Because the snake energy represents the yin, and the wood energy also represents the yin. The yin needs us to get in touch with our spiritual side. It's not like what I said. It's not the emperor wielding the sword to the battlefield about, I got to conquer this, I got to do this, I got to finish that. It's about stepping back. It's about reflection. It's about introspection. It's about learning, study our history. And that's why it relates to our spiritual side, our spiritual understanding about our life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Like a sacred pause and reflecting.
Correct.
Is this the wise thing to do? Not being impulsive. Okay.
It's more about pausing rather than acting now. Yeah.
Well, I'd say, things are moving so fast. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it's like you wake up every day like, what happened now? Like, it's like your head spins sometimes. And it's like, okay, I think the world is ready to kind of pause and take a breath and just kind of catch up a little bit. So that's wise advice.
Yeah. And I think if we can all do that, that would be a much better, actually more productive year for us. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Well, it would be less reactive, running around like a chicken with her head cut off, and more, just thoughtful and deliberate and centered in our actions,
Yeah. And also just not to be reactive, maybe.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a horrible way to be. I heard a quote the other day and it said, losers react, winners anticipate. And it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's been a prayer of mine for a long time. It's be non-reactive, like the saying, be like water,
Yeah.
It's like you just kind of flow. You're not like, what do you mean? Just being so like, just touchy, it's like, being calm, like the duck, paddling like hell underneath the water, but above you're cool as a cucumber.
And it has a lot to do with our physical health, I think, as well. Sometimes, I think sometimes we are reacting emotionally to certain things. It's because physically we are in pain, and we're physically, we are not
in
balanced.
Flight or fight. Flight or fight. Yeah, correct. Like a stress response. Yeah.
And then we when we reacted in our, but nobody knows what kind of physical pain or physical discomfort that we're suffering. And so people might just think that, you're reactive or you're emotional. But that's why I really like, Mr. Polchak's, podcast and the things he talks about, the physical balance and all these kind of stuff. Because I really think that they're together, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
100%. I
literally have clients saying to me that, like, the way I behaved in that way was because I didn't feel well that day.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because, I totally understand that. Yeah. Mm.
I have such sympathy and empathy for people that are in pain, because I've had a couple injuries, and it's like, it's incredible. Like when you're in physical pain, like you can't think. Like I mean, I know, like when I go a night without sleeping, like one of my dogs was up all night the other night, and I was just so grumpy the next day. I didn't even like myself. Like if I need sleep, right? Like when your physical needs are not met, like you're just like a different person. And it's amazing. Like, when it's part of what drives me so much is so many people are malnourished and they overeat, but they're malnourished. And they don't even realize like they're being reactive and all this crap about ADD and I can't focus. And it's like, well, look at your diet, or, you've got all these chemicals in your body. Your body is bouncing all over the place. How can you, no wonder why you can't sit still. And, nature deficit disorder is like a real thing, but 100%, I'm glad you brought that up. So, you got to dial in our health and physical lifestyle, and, you can't access the spiritual when your physiology is a mess, because you don't have the luxury. You're trying to just survive, make it through the day. You can't think about the higher things. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
When we're in our survival mode, right, we just don't have a lot to give. And that's right. Yeah.
100%. Letao, always so, wow, just fascinating. I can't wait to hear this back already. This has been wonderful. Any final thoughts tonight?
I just want to wish everybody a great year of 2025. Have a prosperous and happy new year. I know this is not really much celebrated in the Western world, right? But literally today is a New Year Day in our culture.
Is it? In Hong Kong, today's New Year's? What a coincidence. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Yeah.
Wow.
Happy New Year to all our audience. Yeah. So
Yes.
enjoy, have a great new year, and wish everyone a lot of success and fulfillment. Yeah.
What are your plans for the new year, Letao?
Work.
I was going to say, other than working here with me, and you have a TV interview next, but are you going to do anything for the new year to celebrate?
No, because my families and my friends are actually away. So I might do some travel maybe next month. But this month, pretty much just work. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, and also recover from my flu.
Yes, and everybody, Letao was so gracious, and I'm so impressed he didn't cancel. Poor Letao has got a terrible cold he's on the back end of, but we really appreciate you making the time. And of course, we've got this crazy time distance difference here that, wee hours of the morning there, late at night here. So, but we made it work. You're always so gracious and committed, and I just have so much respect for your professionalism, and I just hope you recover quickly and don't work too hard, my friend.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will. I've been skipping gym for 3 days, so that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, that means you've been really sick. I know that. I know that about you. But you know what? Your body only has so much energy, right? Right now you have to recover. You need like Paul Chek says, you got to do the work in, not the work out. The energy has to go in. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Mm.
Well, if you need to celebrate your new year, you always have a place to stay with me if you want to travel over to the States.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Definitely. Where are you again?
I'm in northern Massachusetts on the New Hampshire border.
Oh, right. You're on the East Coast, right? Yeah. I don't know why. Somehow I always thought you were in California.
Yeah, because I was supposed to be. Okay. I looked for years to move near Paul, my good friend Paul Chek. And that was the plan. That was always the plan. And that's a discussion for a bottle of wine next time I see you. But yeah, it didn't quite, well, it doesn't mean it's not gonna one day, but geez, with what's going on in California with the fires and everything, Paul is not oh boy, it's pretty rough out there. But I always thought I was going to be in California. You never know, but at the moment I am not. So I think I'm closer to you then, right? Because I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah. Depending on how you fly. Usually when we fly from Hong Kong to the US, we fly, actually Western coast is closer because we fly from the other side. We fly across the Pacific Ocean. Oh,
so, across the Pacific. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
So we, from us to New York actually is 16 hours flight. Ooh. It's probably the longest, yeah. But for us to fly to San Francisco or Los Angeles is about 12, something like that, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what you got to do. You got to fly and see Paul. You'll do a show with him, visit Paul, and then you'll stay a day or two, recover, and then you'll just get on the red-eye, fly 6 hours to see me.
Absolutely, yeah.
You'll have to make a U.S. tour.
Yeah, I have to save enough money, and then I'll make a trip.
Well, you have free places to stay. You just have to get the airfare and all that stuff. But
correct,
you don't have to worry about hotels when you get here. So that's off the plate. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Letao. I'm going to let you go. I know you get a big interview coming up. Everybody, we really hope you enjoyed the show. The year of the snake, the year of the 9. We got lots of stuff coming up. Let's be prepared. Let's be non-reactive. Let's live healthy, holistically, and happily. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.